I did this sketch first, probably, I don't know, 1 minute, very large brush, some marks. I didn't even know what I was going to do. So just the sky and something here. Then I copied this to the right. And while I was painting this, I always looked at the previous sketch. Okay, what can I do to improve this? Then this starts to appear here, start to add some warmer glows. Then I copied this below. And so this went in a clockwise motion here, an overlay green, and then it went, so it's always clockwise motion. And I think I ended up with this sketch. Then I took this one. Okay, this is, so you better understand the evolution. And this was the sketch that I picked to start developing it. And here you can't see these planes. Then in the end, they really form this S line, which was not defined yet. And I did a big change here. And this is one of the most important elements. So it's all it's not conscious decisions. I just paint and interesting shapes start to emerge.
All right. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you are watching this.
Good morning over here.
Good morning to our guest. And for today, we have someone from Lisbon, Portugal, and he has over 20 years of experience in the art industry. So he has worked for clients such as Lego, Wizards of the Coast, Fablecraft, Epic Games, and Activision, to name a few. So, without further ado, welcome to our esteemed guest, Andreas Rocha. So, did I get it right? No! Let's go! I got it. All right, let's get to it. So, once again, welcome to the show. Now, I'm gonna start off saying, like, I may primarily be a character creature artist, but your work as an environment artist astounds me. So, I'm not alone here in saying that your works have the allure of depth, and you've mentioned that depth helps draw people into another realm, because once there's depth, you just want to dig into that, right? So I want to ask you just a bit of your background. Like, what was the first movie that you saw that had that effect on you? Because you've mentioned your love for Star Wars, Indiana Jones, all those 70s to 80s movies. What was that first movie?
So the influence of those movies is really because at that time in the 80s, my love for art wasn't that much set, but it was the idea of going into a cinema theater and being immersed and going into these imaginary worlds and being fantasy and science fiction. But one of the most vivid memories I think I have is not the actual movie, but it's the posters by Drew Struzan. When we approached the movie theater and we saw all those posters outside the room, and it really made me dream, oh, what I'm going to see inside, it's going to be amazing. And Drew Struzan had this way of telling the story of the movie on the poster, and it was really something amazing. And I think it was especially those posters that really made me fall in love with storytelling in a visual manner, and I really love those posters, and I think those were really what set my love for these for the what I do now. But I think the movies that really influenced me, and the one I remember the most, is Back to the Future. And I love that movie. It's amazing, and although the poster is not the one that has really that Drew Struzan style, I really love that one. And then I only saw Star Wars later on reruns because although I'm old, I'm not that old.
I didn't say anything.
And Indiana Jones, those I got to see them in the movie, and I really loved those.
Okay. And do you still have that poster by any chance? No more.
The posters, no, I never had the posters.
You
I
just
saw them
saw
at the
them.
movies, but what I bought them afterwards. I bought the some book compilations by Drew Struzan where all the posters were inside those books. And but I
Oh,
think it's even better to have seen the posters and then remember them afterwards in my memory, because I only saw the posters much later when they sometimes at stores and things like that. But they're definitely one of the things that most influenced me and set me on this path.
okay. Now let's continue on in that path. And I'm trying to sculpt a picture for the viewers here. Uh, so without going to the nitty gritty, I want to ask first. Um, you took up architecture for college, right? That was your course.
Yes,
That was your major. Okay. And then you had around 2 years of work experience in architectural firms, correct?
more or less 2 years in a firm and 2.5 years in another firm. Yeah, so
Okay.
altogether between 4 and 5 years.
Oh, okay. So, seeing your background in architecture, and now you work in environment design, right? Would you recommend aspiring environment artists to take up architecture as well for college?
Um, no, definitely not. But in my case, it helped because it gives you sensibility to to read a space, to know what makes a building more interesting in terms of rhythms and space and the way the light interacts with the room and things like that. But I didn't learn that consciously. I didn't think, oh, I'm going to learn architecture because I want to paint. No, architecture they taught me. I did the degree and everything that's around it, but only afterwards do I understand how it helped me to, because it helps with perspective. um, it helps with seeing things, to value things. And even if it's not things in a building, even in landscape, you start to see rhythms, you start to see how the light interacts with forms and things like that. But actually, one of the things that helped me after college was, as I said before, I worked in a firm where I did a lot of architectural renderings and things like that. And that, yeah, it helped me a lot to understand how materials work, interact with light, because we had to fake a lot of things, and how to set up camera angles that were interesting to present the project. And only later did I understand it was great knowledge that I learned unconsciously, to see how materials interact with light, and how to set up camera angles, how to try and tell a story with the of the building, to focus on the focal areas and things like that. But once again, it was not consciously. And so I think all these things that happened during my life, only after when I started taking painting more seriously, only then did I understand that those things that I had learned in the past were going to be fruitful and would help me in my job.
And over those years, you've also referenced other books references, right? And I'm gonna name five of the books you recommend,
Yeah.
namely The Painterly Approach, The
Yes.
Simple Secret to Better Painting,
Yes.
Color and Light, a staple,
Yes.
Mastering Composition, and Color and Composition for Film.
Yes. So
Okay.
let me just, because I have them handy here, and I think
Oh,
at least these two and this one in color composition for film, I think I have it here. Let me just, I don't know if it's, well, anyway, this one, I don't know. Yeah,
it's
this
seen.
one is amazing. This book, even if it's so simple, because really it's The Simple Secret to Better Painting. The author sums it up one in one phrase, and I think he even puts it in bold. But it's so simple. It really, I can't see it. Is it's just a small phrase here that never make any two intervals the same. And he
Oh,
applies this phrase to everything, to color, to rhythm, to composition, and it's such an invaluable um, uh, help. And once I read the book, and I advise people to get this book because it's full of examples. Even if it looks old, it applies to traditional painting. All of this can be applied to any kind of image making, and it's really, really, really good. The other one is the painterly approach, which I also love because it's again about traditional painting, and the author right from the beginning he talks about, well, I'm going to sum it up. Talks about two ways to approach image making. He talks about one where you draw the outlines and then start to fill in with paint. That's usually how most of us learn to paint in school, and drawing first and then paint. And the other form that he mentions and that he supports and say that's the painterly approach is to start with form overall, to lay down the values and then slowly start sculpting the image. And that's the way I've been painting for almost all the time. I remember that starting painting digitally was doing the sketch first and then painting. And so many artists do that. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I really love this approach of it's more like sculpting, where you take a big block and then you start chipping away big masses and then you start getting into detail. But this book also great. And then color and light. I don't think I have to say much because I've seen so many people reference it. And I even remember at the time I bought it, I wrote an email to James Gurney and say, "Oh, your book is amazing." And he was so nice. He replied and even saw my portfolio. So I thank him for that. But he really did a great job with this book, and I think it's a reference for so many artists out there. Um, and even if you buy these three big books or the other two, I think it will help so much to it's so much knowledge instead of watching a tutorial or a video, which is also great. But these books, I think people forget a bit about the knowledge that's inside books and how much they can help.
amen on that. I mean, I may be 26. I mean, I might be in the middle of the digital age, but I like books more. Like, it's just different when you can skim through it versus
Yeah,
like um, viewing through a PDF viewer. It's not optimized. It's all
yeah.
that stuff. It's really different.
And
But
usually when you read a book, you're in a different setting, or you're
oh,
sitting on a chair, or you're sitting at the table, or you can read it outside, which you can't do with a tablet. And
oh,
the environment around, I think, makes the whole experience different. And you can always go to a cafe or a park, and reading a book in different settings, I think, really makes it more entertaining to read. And I always take notes. I just don't, because if I don't take notes, I'll forget everything. But I really dissect all these books and almost like studying for an exam.
oh, okay. Oh man, that brought me back to college. Wait, speaking of bringing books around, like I got a curious question because all all those five books, like I know you have countless other books, but those five books are your top ones, right?
Yes.
Now, if you were to take a book with you to the grave, which would it be from those five?
I think it would be the simple secret to, although I think well, I don't know everything that's inside it, but I think that's really the one that helped me the most, and it's so simple and so interesting to read. I think that would be the one that I would take with me.
Okay, and then what would be like the one lesson from that book that you want on your gravestone? Something you live by, and you'll die by.
um, I don't know, because that's that phrase to don't never make Never make two intervals the same. I think that's the one. I think you can apply it to so many things, to the way of living. It's all about balance and imbalance, and try to don't make everything the same. Always try to find contrasts and motion, and there is balance, but try to make it unequal. Try to seek things that are unequal, even if you're walking down a path. And I remember doing that with my kids. I was walking with them. Oh, we were in nature, and I said, "So, which side of this road do you like most, the right side or the left side?" The left side was much more interesting because there was a little river and a bush, and they said, no, the right side. And why? And then because of this and that. And then I slowly started to tell them, no, you can see that here are differences, you contrasts, it's all different, things are not the same, and the eye starts to make motions, and it's much more entertaining to look at this landscape. I don't think they were convinced, but I remember that asking them a few days later, and some of that information, they retained that. So it was interesting. But really, this phrase of seeking contrasts and uh, don't make things the same, I think you can apply that to everything in life.
Wait, I'm astounded that were they in agreement? Like, by the way, guys, like
Yes, yes.
Andreas is the father of twins, so like they're not conflicting. Like they were in unison when they chose which side of the road.
Yeah, but they both took. I don't think it's obviously because the way a child or a youngster looks at, uh, they don't see images as we adults look at it. But I think it makes sense that they pick the other side. But I hope I convinced them a little bit to try and seek every other things when they're looking at things.
Okay. Well, you've still got some years. Oh, they will eventually,
Yes,
hopefully. And
yes.
on the topic of years, you've been in this industry for 20 years, doing countless concepts and landscapes. And that's really interesting, an anecdote you shared with your daughters. So I want to ask, like, how do you still find new things to do? Like, or do you still find new things to do, be it in work or other things? Because 20 years, that's a lot. That's a lot, and that's a lot of wisdom gained. And there's this seed? There's probably like a ceiling you might hit with everything you've learned. I've heard people talk about like, oh, I miss being like when I was a student because I was absorbing everything. So in your age right now and everything you've cultivated, do you still find new things to do?
Yes, definitely. And I even think, oh, I would love to have more time to invest in these new things. But one of the things that drives me the most really is, and I mentioned this several times. I don't know if on posts and um, on texts, is that I'm always seeking the ideal for I'm always seeking for the ideal technique. So the one that takes me from point A to point B, and point B being the perfect painting, and if there are no detours. And this is my struggle, and I will never find that perfect technique. But it's so much fun trying out new things, new approaches to painting, and I could do this. I think I can do that for the rest of my life. Is trying to. It never gets boring because once you do a
Mm.
painting, you look at it. Oh, this one is good. And what did I do? And I go over those steps, analyze it. Oh, let's try and improve that. And I will probably, I would like to share I have a folder here of all the thumbnails of different techniques I use. And that's something I love doing. And even when the painting is already in a detailing stage, I try and explore different techniques, different brushes, different parts, because I have most of my paintings I throw into the garbage. They're not good, and
Oh.
because the ones that are there that I look at them, okay, I think this one is good. I'll post them online, but most of it I just throw away because it's really it's a path. The As someone wise said, it's not how far you get, but it's how you get there. And so this is really, it's very entertaining to try out new things, and so I'll never get bored. And even if having this knowledge, I don't think it's that much knowledge. uh,
Oh, mm,
but it's really entertaining, and it's great to do this on a daily basis and have fun and experimenting with things.
I want to touch on what you said, that it's how you get there. So on the topic of that, like you mentioned somewhere that the breaks you take are just as important as the time you spend making the art. So I want to delve deeper into that. That sounded like there was something to talk about there. Was there a period where you just had to take a very long break after an artwork? And like what project or artwork was that? Because I want to help the viewers see that taking breaks is important. I've hung out with younger artists who want to work 16, 12 hours a day. So I want to know, like, wh- when was that time for you that, you value taking breaks? I want to know if there was something extreme.
I don't think there was ever something extreme, because being so I'm just talking about the path when I started freelancing. And when you're freelancing, you're at home. And when you're at home, you're not just painting. You're
Mm,
going shopping. You're spending time with the family. You're going to the movies. You have to do some chores that are a bit boring. But it's always up and down. So I don't think I never got to an artist's block where, oh no, I'm working too much and I have to stop this. I think luckily I have a balance in my working hours. So but there were times when painting after painting after painting, things just didn't come out. And when I get there, I don't take a break. I think I might take a break for a few hours or one day or so, but never an extended break. I never had a breakdown or something like that. But one thing that I learned over the years, and that I mentioned a while back, is I analyze older paintings. So
mm-hmm,
when I'm, you could call this an artist's block, and what I do is I go back, look
uh-huh,
at the paintings that had a good outcome, and I dissect them. I go through the step by step images. I look what I did at the initial stages. And one thing I've been doing for the last 5 years, since I started my Patreon, is record all the painting videos. So I have all the paintings that I did over the last 5 years. I have videos, and then I really go down and what did I do here? What did I do there? And it helps so much to analyze, because when you're painting, it's almost subconscious. You're not. It's not like a mathematical equation. You just paint, and
mm-hmm,
you're in a zone. It's 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 difficult to describe. So you're not you're not entirely aware of what you're doing. It's going with the flow. But after the painting, after several, because I do a lot of sessions, painting sessions for one painting, I go back and analyze it, and it helps me a lot to see, okay, I did this right, I'll do this again. I even have documents, Word documents, where I point out all the things that I did well, all the things that I have to avoid. So it's not something. It's almost like I try to be pragmatic about it. Although it's a very emotional thing to paint, I try to be a bit scientific about it, and try to see what I did right and what I did wrong, and repeat those steps.
it's interesting to hear because I'm not saying like not everyone gets art block or like only a few people don't get art block. I know like a lot of established artists like Art Germ, Stanley Lau, who says he doesn't get art germ. So it's really refreshing to hear how you approach it. I think it's a healthy relationship with art because some people get tied to their work that they obsess over it for hours and they don't realize that it's harmful. So I like that example that you gave. So I hope our listeners took note of that. Wait, you said you were in the zone and you're kind of known around here for your speed in making art. I mean, for us, it's like insanely fast. Like 3 to 5 hours. You said you would finish a piece, or sometimes the longest one would take you 15 hours. I know these numbers are very specific, so I hope I'm still accurate. Am I? Like, am I? Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that's a bit, but it's not so simple. Because that I don't know if you still wanted to uh, develop your question a bit more, but I can answer on that timing first. Because when I say that time, it's actually the painting time of the video that I record,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't take into account research or failed attempts. I have so many failed attempts where I go to one stage and then no, I have to wipe out the last 1 or 2 hours and then do that again. Um, but some successful paintings really were done in 3 hours, but it's 15 minutes here, 30 minutes here, and that's one of the most important things that I learned is never paint on one painting for more than 30 minutes because I
Oh,
start to get brainwashed, and then if I paint, it still happens. I paint too long. I spend too much time in one session on one painting, and then I come back to it and I say, "Oh, what did I do here? Everything is wrong." And then I have to go back a lot of steps, erase a lot of layers I did in Photoshop. So it's a very organic process. For me, the best is really paint on more than or 2 or 3 paintings simultaneously, jumping from one to the other.
yeah.
Um, or do some sketching or get up and do lunch. And I don't spend so much time, although I mentioned that being in the zone, you can do that in 20 minutes or something. It's just that
Cool.
unconscious process of painting. But really, if that's one of the best tips I can give to artists is to don't spend too much time on one painting or in one session. You always have to keep a fresh eye, and it's sometimes even frightening. What just going for a walk to the living room for 5 minutes, and when you come back, you look at the painting differently, and it frustrates me a lot because I look at the painting and I ask myself, how didn't I see these mistakes before? Because I'm so much into it that I have to consciously make intervals to get away from the painting or change paintings. But that's something that I learned over the years, and yes, that's experience, that's knowledge that I learned, and very valuable knowledge for me.
Oh, I think that's a perfect segue to the demo. You mentioned to DJ that you would be showing us your
Yes,
workflow.
yes, yes.
Okay.
So let me, I don't know, I have 3 folders here. One is the portfolio. I don't know if I should quickly go, let me see if I can put it here.
Whichever you're comfortable sharing with us.
Yeah, okay, then.
Our viewers would love anything you want to show.
Okay, okay, then let me see. Share screen. Um,
Taking notes here and there.
can you
There we go.
see?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so these are, this is a small part of my portfolio. I try to include all the best paintings, but also include some of the first paintings that I did. So it's probably too many, but I'll try and keep it in under 20 minutes. So this one was the first environment painting I think I did. Because before it was just characters, and that's what I love doing. And then I was okay. Let's paint a sunset, and I don't know which screen size you're looking at it, but I think this was quite small when I painted it. But it was my first time testing something like this. Here you can see there's still line work and very airbrushy. And I think this was 2000, yeah, this 2003. So this was 21 years ago. Um, here, the first time I started to do some storytelling, but everything is wrong with this painting. Some sci-fi, but everything, you can still see a lot of lines. It's none of what I learned. That's the process. You learn a lot of things, and I look at this. So many things wrong here. Um, and at the time, I used the program. It was a fractal design painter, and it's changed into Coral Painter many years later. But that was one of the more painterly programs where you can really. It felt more like real paint, where things would blend. And this, I think, was the first environment painting that I enjoyed the result. Although it was much, I used a reference and I referenced it a lot. Of course, there are problems here about composition, but I think overall the colors work. You have depth, and I think this was one of the first paintings that told me, "Yo, this is something that I can enjoy a lot." And this one was one. I think this is probably one of the most important paintings for me. And at the time, there was this forum. It was called CG Talk, and they had a challenge where you had, I think it was 3 months to complete a painting, and the theme was space opera. And I remember I started, I don't know if it's painting the character, and it slowly evolved. But the most important thing that I learned from doing this painting, and I probably spent about 50 hours on this. It was ridiculous, is ridiculous. Is to never give up. Try, try, and invest as much time as possible and go over it, correct things. Because before this, I had only done short paintings, 2, 3, 4 hours at the most. But this one, since the deadline was so extended, I just came back to it every 3 or 4 days, and it taught me that I can really push a painting to take it to another level. And then I remember that painting before, it really changed things because I started to add more detail. I started to spend much more time doing the paintings. This one was 19 years ago. Some storytelling. Um, Here again with the painterly brushes. This one based on a Portuguese monument, the Tower of Belém. Um, Here, this was again real. It was always done with a very painterly. I started doing things with edges where the edges were less defined and there were less lines, and I enjoyed this kind of painting. This one was also important because it was the first matte painting that I did where I tried to do it as photographic as possible. And it taught me a lot of things about combining photos and things like that, although I don't do this at all anymore. But at the time, this was how you did it, more or less. I'm just going through them now a bit quicker. I started to do a lot of photo bashing to try out things. There's some painting here in the middle, but a few photos here in the lower part. This was client work, so I started to get job offers in this area. Again, something more photographic. Some storytelling from things from my youth. Again, photographic here. So there was a lot of photographic elements in these paintings. This had been done for a magazine, a tutorial. Um,
I got a quick question I want to inject.
yes,
What do you think those employers saw in your earlier works that got you hired?
I think at the time, I don't know because my work wasn't that defined. I think because nowadays I clearly know what the client enjoys in my work, and they tell me that. But at the time, I think perhaps it was because it was environment work and that there weren't many environment artists
Oh, interesting.
at the time. That's probably something that draw my work to them, because there was really, I think at the time it was really only CG Talk where you could display your work. This CG Talk and conceptart.org. But there really weren't many forums to display your work.
So it
And
was
this one I
kind.
did for James Pake
Oh, cool.
masterclass at CGMA, I think.
Oh,
So, and this one I learned a lot from him. It was great course. I did a lot of environment paintings. This one also. This was very heavily inspired by Blade Runner. I love that movie.
I can see it.
The one from the 80s. Um, I'll just keep passing another. This was also for another CGMA course, more for science fiction. And here, client work for a trailer for, I think it was Grid 2, and they needed some concept art for the cinematic. And I like this one because it was done with a lot of not a lot of photos, but a lot of layers, and it was a different approach from what I usually do. And this one was the painting that I mentioned a while back when you asked me. So when my kids were born, it was hell. And waking up at 11, then at 2 or more, and 2 o'clock in the morning, and at 5, and it was this rhythm for, I don't know, 2 months, and it was hell. And between feeding them, because I helped my wife a lot, it was impossible for one parent to take care of two babies. I helped a lot, and instead of going to sleep between 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning, I started this painting, um, and it's really helped me. And I developed a technique to 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 zoom in slowly. So start very small and then start to enlarge the canvas gradually, and it helped me a lot. And this was also one of the key paintings in my development. It helped me a lot. Um, so going a bit faster now. I don't even
Perfect.
know if you can see this because whenever I see other artists displaying their work on YouTube, there's so much video compression. Um, I don't know if people can see the details or not, but
I can see it pretty clearly on my
okay,
end.
okay, great. And
Cool.
again, for another CGMA course, I also started doing interiors because before it was always just things seen from outside and castles and everything related to fantasy. But then I started, no, let's do some interior. This was not the first interior painting I did, but I started to see that uh, it's very entertaining to do interiors like this, where it's more approach like traditional painting. There is a lot of less detail in the shadows. There is a focal point, and I enjoyed doing these kinds of paintings.
That's cool.
This was also for a CGMA course with Aaron Lemonic. Um, I think this one too. And this was the first painting I did for Patreon. And this was also, so anybody who I think should record their paintings if they have enough hard drive space, and it doesn't take up much space. Just install OBS, and you won't regret it because it helps me so much to go over a painting to see what I did, and this was and many of these paintings that I will show now were done for Patreon. It was good because I haven't updated my Patreon in, I don't know, 1 year or 2 years, I think, but it helped me a lot to keep producing better paintings on a regular basis, to release the rewards on a monthly basis. Um, this painting, a lot of times I go back to paintings that I did in the past and then add more detail to them and then release them again online. I love these. These two have very similar vibes. These fiery reds and glows.
I got another question as you're going through these because I see the development throughout
Mhm,
these years as you were growing your portfolio and your skills. What were
mhm.
the art workouts that you did for environment? Because I know for creature character, we have studies of forms, anatomy, gesture. What are the equivalent of that, but for environment? The stuff that
Uh,
you did. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't understand the question. The stuff that I did for environment paintings, what in terms of learning or
Oh, you're keeping your tools sharp. So, for
ah
example, yeah, like for us character artists, we do gesture, anatomy. What's the
okay,
equivalent of
okay.
that?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So in terms of environment painting, I think because these paintings throughout the years, I read a lot of these books, and a lot of them are for traditional painting, but they're traditional painting of landscapes, and they talk about composition and things like that. Then I also love to go walking around Lisbon, taking photos, using them as reference, seeking inspiration, and a lot of and one of the most important things that helps is to develop my own technique between client work. So I'm always doing personal work while I'm doing work for clients, and
Ooh.
I try to invest as much time as possible and try to develop new techniques, brushes, shortcuts. I have Photoshop now. I think I'm quite quick with it because the shortcuts, I have them so tailored to my needs. And for the last 2 years, I've been using Auto Hotkey. It's a small program that it's free and it helps you develop um, a lot of shortcuts, and it's been invaluable. It makes my work so much quicker in Photoshop. I never use the mouse and click on the menus or on the tools. It's all through
Oh,
the keyboard, and it really quickens the process. And I think that's very important if you want to do this kind of fast work. You have to be really quick with the shortcuts, and that's something that comes with experience, but it will really help a lot.
what's the name of the plugin? Sorry, Alto Hotkeys.
Auto Hotkey, AHK, and a lot of software developers use it and you can use it for any program, but it's so good, and you can, for example, hit a key and it does a sequence um, of keystrokes in a row, and if you control that well, you can do a lot of things. And um, for example, now I have 4 keys. If I hit them once, it goes for one brush. If I hit them twice in a row, it goes to another brush. And I have
Oh, that's
three,
cool.
and I have that for 4 keys, so I can access about I don't know 12 brushes, and it's so quick. I don't go to the tool, and I don't even
Uh huh.
click on the right click. It's just clicking on the keyboard, and it takes me to all the brushes that I want to use. But it takes some training because to get to this quick workflow, but it helps a lot.
That's cool. Oh, someone linked the software. Thank you, Ella. So our subscribers are commenting. Pretty
Hmm.
cool. Oh, I can't wait to
Um,
see that in the workflow demo in action. Some
yeah,
black magic.
yeah. I'll show it to you in Photoshop.
Oh, that lighting is so great.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that the clients enjoy is the lighting, um, and I think it has a lot to do with overlay modes, uh, not overusing the airbrush in Photoshop, and controlling your composition. And especially, you can see it here. For example, it's whatever is in shadows has little detail and almost gets read as one shape.
Oh,
And I only understood this much later that it's all about balancing the detail in the shadows and the detail in the highlights. For example, here you can see it's just one silhouette here. There's little detail. There's a lot of detail in the silhouettes, minor details, but it's just one big shape that goes that melts, and that's something that paintings are always using this technique. In 3D, it's much more difficult to simulate that, but with painting, it's so easy just to brush over details and to erase detail because it's not necessary. You have to drive the eye where you want to. A lot of again with Blade Runner, a lot of photo bashing with this one, and I'll go over quicker because
2018,
yes,
almost
still
nearing the
6 years
pandemic.
ago, but uh,
I can't believe it's been 6 years. Man, the pandemic, there was like a time skip with the pandemic.
yes, something happened in between. Again, another interior. And I stay away from characters because I'm so bad at painting characters. I just include them for scale and story. But what I love to focus on is the environment.
Ooh.
And figures are always just suggested. It's mostly silhouettes, and then the detail is more in the architecture, in the landscape. Usually they are in landscape format, but occasionally I do some paintings in portrait format.
Is that because of Instagram? Because I know you hate Instagram.
Yes. No, Instagram. I think I kept to the square format, and I think what I saw another artist doing and a lot of artists do that, displaying a landscape painting, but in sequence. So whenever they scroll to the next image, you can scroll from right to left
See,
on a mobile phone and at least appreciate more or less the painting the way that it's supposed to. Um,
mm, you
so I,
gradually learn to love Instagram, I see. Because I think you
yes,
mentioned,
yes.
yeah,
What
if you
I
can't be
love
them.
most, yeah, but what I love about it's not displaying the work, is finding out about other artists. And
Oh,
on the PC, it gets a bit too small, the images, but on a tablet, it's the right size, and you can really. I love looking at the work of traditional artists because they are displaying a lot of work on Instagram, and I love going through that and see what they're doing. This is one of my more popular paintings. At the time, I didn't even think much of it, I think, but as I started getting the likes and the views, I understood, oh, I did something right. And I went over this painting a lot of times to see because many times I don't even know what I did right. And then when I get the people, the viewers' reception, something clicks and okay, this was successful. Let's see what I did right. And then I start to appreciate my own painting because I start to understand things that worked and that I should seek to repeat, or at least the workflow. This was for a GM screen, so it was quite this. I'd never done a painting in such so this one is
ooh,
quite it's quite big. I think it's 13,000 pixels wide. Um,
ooh. How do you tackle those horizontal pieces? I'm just curious. I've never painted horizontal
so
stuff.
it's always start with thumbnail sketches and small gesture marks, and because it has to work at a small scale. I have had some paintings that I started painting at uh, a higher zoom level, but usually it ends up not working. So if a painting works like this, if a painting works like this, usually it will work when it's when you see it large. It's a matter of adding more detail, and I think I'll try and show that to the. I have a folder here of successful paintings where I put the sketch and the final image side by side, so I can see what I did right. And but I think I'll try and show that next. Um,
2021.
yes.
Ooh. These are for like this is the stuff you did on Patreon or a mix of client work as well.
Yes, yes. So, yeah, I think most of these were for Patreon. It's not for Patreon; it's for my personal portfolio. But then the Patreon
Oh,
thing was more the drive to make myself produce personal paintings on a regular basis. This was the first painting for Fablecraft. Um, and it was a great experience because and this one too, I like this painting a lot. And again, I only afterwards started to appreciate the things that I did right and things that I didn't even think at the time.
oh, it's dope. How'd you get the Fablecraft gig, by the way?
They and that's for I think 99.9% of my paintings is the clients that approached me after seeing my portfolio online. So I never sent an email to anybody presenting my work. It's always I just keep posting work online, and then and I if I start posting a lot of updates, I think usually it's when I get more offers. It's almost an equation. If you post more work, you'll get more work. If you post less work, you'll get less work.
Oh,
Um, and it's really a matter of making yourself seen on the internet because art directors are always browsing, uh, and many of them are artists who enjoy also looking at other people's work. So the Fablecraft was really they came to me and they said they had been fans for quite some time. That was also nice to hear. And then they
hey,
said, "Okay, we're doing this, and can you help us?" And yeah, I'm all for it because it's environments, it's fantasy, it's all I love. I don't even look, I don't even hesitate. It's luckily I've been most of the work I do is people see the clients see what I do, and then and what I do is what I enjoy doing the most. And if they ask me to do that for a living, I say yes, of course. Having fun and getting paid for it, it's perfect. And these I think are yeah these are from this year, and this is almost the
recent.
last painting. And yeah, this is inspired by some street in Lisbon, and that I love going there, and I gave it a more sci-fi look. So let me then just see if I can. Let me just hide this and
Sure.
see if I
Oh,
can.
someone has a question on the topic of that last painting you showed. Because it shows architecture. Ella
Yes.
is asking, do you have any specific books or other supplementary materials that help to improve your visual library with architecture and details?
Um, um, I have not really because it's in the architecture degree they asked us to paint in rooms, so we had to paint perspective. But there's a I had a very oh, it's one of I have so many books that I haven't read, but I remember this one. Uh, there are some very good books on perspective, and usually they're not the ones that say they tell you where the vanishing point is, and that's ridiculous. That won't help you at all. It's really the ones that help you to see perspective in a more free-form manner. And if I see a book about perspective and it tells you how to place the vanishing point here and there and how to build, they have all the construction lines. Nobody does that anymore. And nowadays you build a simple 3D model, although I don't do it. But most people who can struggle, they maybe build a simple 3D model and then they start to paint. They draw the shape on top of that. But for me, it helps to understand perspective, laying down the vanishing points. But it's a very quick thing in Photoshop, so it's not something technical. That won't help you at all. Let me just see. Sorry about this.
No, no worries. I'm looking at the comments right now. Oh, wait. So, just curious, you're technically proficient in 3D, right? Because of your architecture background.
Uh, no, not really. I
Oh,
I at the time I learned 3D Studio Max. I was good at it, but just for architecture. But then I started using it less and less, and nowadays I don't even. There's very little 3D that I use in my work. Um, well, I'm not. Here it is. Okay, so let me see if I can show this. Where's the window? Here, share. So can you see this, right?
yes, we can.
Okay, so this is the sketch. You can see it always looks nice to see the larger paintings in this small form. Although these are this is more or less the sketch phase where I take the decision to take the painting to the detail phase. So this may take 30 minutes, 50 minutes, more or less. This is the sketch, and now I'm going to swap to the finished painting. And if I'll do that again. I'll do this a few times, and you can see that some of them at this size, you don't see much of a difference. Probably this one in the lower left is the one that suffered. No, there is a big change between the sketch. It is more daytime. Um, Here you can see a lot of artificial lighting that's not present here. But for example, this one here, is there's not much of a difference. And if you can get to a sketch that looks interesting, it's just a matter of polishing it, and it takes time, of course. But polishing it and cleaning up the edges, adding a bit more detail, a lot more detail, but in the right places. Um, and I took these examples. This one also is very close. The sketch, although this lit area is something that I introduced later on. But for me, the sketch is so important, and I struggled with it a lot. Um, but it's very important to have a good sketch. And let me see if I can find.
How long
Uh,
did it take you per sketch, by the way?
for a sketch, how long does it take?
Yeah.
It depends. A lot of times, I'll show it here. I do a lot of. Wait, here. That's this. Sorry. Thumbnail sketches here. So you can see here I have examples of, and these were done this a lot of. I'll go quickly through them so you can see different kinds of for clients. For I've experimented so many things, and for example, this one would probably take, I don't know, 1 hour. And this, I remember the sketch, I did this one first, then I did this one, and then I did this one. And I jumped between them all the time. And then
Mm.
once these three were done, I created a new sketch. I think I started from this one, and then I copied parts from this one. I think I started to mix together because
I think you got
this
some of
tree,
the
for
house.
example, this tree is this one.
Yeah.
So I took the best parts of each sketch and came up with a new one. This was a technique I explored. This one also. I started from this one, but then I cut this part, placed it here. I took this guy from here and placed him here,
Mm.
and it helps. And when I look at it, yes, this sketch is much better than any of the three. Here, for example, I did this sketch first, then I cut a part from the sketch, copied it to the side. Sometimes I rotated 90 degrees, and then I continue painting from there. Um, and these are studies from the movie The Ninth Gate with Johnny Depp, and it was mostly about controlling shapes and being aware of very soft, very subtle nuances. I don't know how you say it, but it was mostly about getting edges right and the shapes. Here I did a lot of work. I worked with a lot with the mixer brush, and always I start with one, then go to the next. Sometimes I get back to the other, so it's working with them simultaneously. This one was also very important for me. Is I'd done these paintings, and I thought, well, let's make a hypothetical sketch that I would have done. I don't know. So I'm working the other way around. I did this sketch after having done this painting. And this was done, I don't know, 3 years ago, much later than this probably is 80 years old, this painting. But a few years back, I thought, no, let's simplify this painting as much as possible. So it would have been a sketch. And it helps me a lot to understand about shapes. What are the main shapes? For example, here you can see a lot of details, but if you just paint this as a silhouette, it helps you as much. Here again, the most important is the overall silhouette and the sky behind, not those small details. So it's trying to reduce the painting to its most basic elements, and that helps a lot. And you can do this with paintings from other artists. Here, the same. So this is not this a triangle, another triangle. It's a bit darker. Here is another shape, although you might not read it as much as such in this painting. The clouds, just circular forms. And this shape is very important. Um, but this kind of analyzing your own work helped. Here I did black and white sketches with one brush that had streaks in them, and I put these values here on top, and I just picked these values. So it's always trying out new techniques. Um, I don't know if I'm talking too much, but
No, there's a lot of violent reactions on this side. Like, what? These are just sketches? And then, whoa, he's reverse engineering his own work.
yes, exactly. And these for client work where I do chain. So I don't develop these much further. I present them like this, and then the client says, "Okay, we like this one. Develop this one further." And you're seeing them quite large. I probably I would work at them at this size, but it also depends on what size your screen is. Here I used a lot the mixer brush again. And this one, it was a series of 4 paintings that I did simultaneously. So the theme was a big hall. And this one, I showed them the finished versions just now. But here they are very crude. It's mostly about a focal point, some interesting textures. And okay, I'll jump just to see to instead of showing too many here. So this was a sketch, but I painted it at this size probably.
Cool.
But you can see it's at this size you can't even make out what it is. But here you can see, okay, perhaps this is a big window, this is a floor, and here are some lamps perhaps. And then I start to add more detail. Let me see if I can lock this. Lock the zoom. No.
Use the mixer brush here, am I right?
Yes, a lot for the initial sketch. And yeah, I think here are some photos I overlaid in these early stages, and I'll put it like this. Hope that it works. But you're only seeing this the window, right, from this software at the right now.
Yeah, just the window.
Would help to lock this, but okay, no problem. So adding here, I think I added some photos, corrected the perspective. So I don't have a perspective. I usually adapt it as I'm working through the painting and correct it. The
Ooh,
first stages are really about putting down paint and see what works, and the main directions, the main axis of the paintings. And then I start to correct the perspective. I start to add more atmosphere with softer brushes. Things
well, we
are
got
starting to get defined, and
someone's asking. So, do you? Sorry to interrupt, but they
yeah,
wanted to
sure.
ask: do you use photos in your sketches as well, like from earlier?
I usually I don't do that because I've learned that adding too much detail from photos in such early stages doesn't help. It's much better to add texture from the brushes and be very gestural about it. Um, but I have tried to apply photos right from the beginning, and I've done some paintings with that. But mostly now I just use a simple brush, and and here's the video. Let me see.
There's a video.
Oops, sorry. Now I have to stop sharing because I have to use another. Let me see if I can share screen. Uh, okay.
Is this like a
Can you
time
see the
lapse?
video now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, then let me see if I can speed this up. 4 times speed is
Oh, this
so.
is a recording. This is
Yes,
time
yes.
lapse. Oh, cool. Oh, we can see
So
how.
playing with overlay modes. So this was the basic sketch. I took it and then I started to overlay some photos, remove the colors that would clash with the green. Then I paint. I use the mixer brush to sample from the photo some parts, and and some usually when I see other artists and these sped up paint videos, I think, oh, it's amazing. He paints so fast. So this is an illusion, and some I paint much slower than this, but it looks really cool when it's so fast like this. You can see I'm sampling some of the parts from the photo to use the mixer brush. I'm always swapping between the mixer brush and the regular brush. And I'll skip forward. It will be very boring. But you can see I slowly start to do some lines, some thick, paint some thick lines to set the perspective. Bigger jumps forward. Here I paint with the airbrush. to reduce details. Again, a photo, overlay mode, um, and then paint over it. That's very important. Never let a photo be just like that. You have to paint over it so it melts with the painting.
Take note, chat.
Here exactly. I had usually I don't do the perspective grids now. I just paint lines. But at the time, I think I had I use perspective tools. It's a very
Oh,
handy plugin. Although now
okay.
I just paint with the line tool, and then I set more or less the viewpoint, the vanishing point, and then I think for this one it's just a 1 point perspective. Set the horizon line, very important, and also since it was going to be a 3 point perspective, the vertical lines also skew upwards. And then I put this here in a layer group perspective, so I can turn them on and off. Because I don't like to paint with the perspective below. Uh, it's really it doesn't help for this kind of gestural drawings. So I'm going to skip a lot more forward.
I like how you're using the word gestural for environment. I think it's the first time I've heard gestural used for
Yes, usually it's more for character work and the pose but even
yeah.
the space I think has gesture. The vanishing point,
Mhm.
the way that one element flows into the other, because there has to be some movement. Otherwise, it's a very static image.
I like
And
that.
especially if you're painting a landscape, a natural landscape, there's a lot of gesture there. The way a field goes, the flowing lines, all of that. I think it has character. Let's skip way more forward. And you can see I'm just stacking layers on top of each other and adding layer after layer. And now I'm going into a bit more detail, changing brushes. And yeah, and in the end, it's just a matter of smaller details and in just some areas. And let me just see. And I can show you a bit more step by step, because
Oh,
whenever I
please.
see other artists showing the step by step images, I think, oh, that's the most interesting. Um,
A lot of the people in the audience right now, yeah, they're very amused. Oh, someone has a question. Um,
yes.
do you still upload speed paint recordings on your socials, or are those limited to your Patreon only?
I don't do it because I'm lazy. Because since I haven't updated my Patreon in a while, I was thinking of uploading those to YouTube. But I don't think people take a look at my YouTube channel anyway, so that's why I haven't uploaded anything there. But I'll try and do that, because it's very easy. I have so many videos. It's just a matter of uploading them
I think
here.
even without edits, I think people would still consume that. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I don't edit. I have no idea how to edit a video. I just
Hey, same.
start from point A and goes to point B. And so this was a very um, this was one of those thumbnail sketches I think I had there, and I really wanted to lock this. I don't remember how to lock it. Xn view, uh, image view, zoom, lock zoom. Okay. Okay. So here the sketch.
Uh huh.
you can see I'm starting with the edges of this main shape. And here I reduced because it was a bit, this shape wasn't very elegant. I started to use the lasso tool a lot here. I think all the shape, it was a very textural brush, but I used the lasso tool a lot to define the shape. So it's a shape with very defined edges, but the interior is very textured. And then here, especially in this one, I think I drew some guidelines to set the motion of the. You see, this one is very broken. I think I will make this shape larger. Yeah, I'll start to clean it up. And between this and this, you see, I cleaned a lot of the brush strokes here. They were very distracting. So the focus immediately shifts to this settlement and to the mountain. Here there was a lot of detail here, but then here between these it's a matter of adding small details around these shapes. And the last steps is really adding a vignette, adjusting I think there were too blue, these shadows, I desaturated them. So the contrast against this green electric glow would be more pronounced, and added these birds to guide. More this one we already had. For example, this one. Okay. Started as a small black and white sketch. I think I added an overlay mode and just added another overlay mode to add this yellow glow. And at the time, I had no idea what I was going to do with this painting. Started to distribute more these highlights, and then these shapes started to appear. Here you can't see them. Perhaps you can already hint at this and here, but then these round shapes started to appear. And I think here I already started, okay, this is going to be some kind of river, and these will be glows from lighting from these houses. Then also it's a very small shape here, and then I start to define this a little bit more, and I also start to zoom in more. These branches start to appear. Start to clean up everything, and then between this and this, it's really very small, tiny brush and adding details, but not too much. It's more where there are contrasts and where you want to direct the eye. So especially here, although I added some details here and here. And then in the end, it's more about cleaning, adding some atmospheric effects with a lasso tool and painting with a cloud brush. And these glows were really added on a separate layer with an effect on a layer. I never do that, but in this case I did it. You see, I corrected here this window. I thought it didn't. For example, here, not the best example, but never make two intervals the same. So you see, this interval and this was very similar. So I cut this window, shifted it, and reduced the size. Yeah.
Someone's asking, was that inspired by Star Wars?
No, not at all. And here, for example, took another approach. I did this sketch first, probably, I don't know, 1 minute, very large brush, some marks. I didn't even know what I was going to do. So just the sky and something here. Then I copied this to the right. And while I was painting this, I always looked at the previous sketch. okay, what can I do to improve this? Then this starts to appear here, start to add some warmer glows. Then I copied this below. And so this went in a clockwise motion here, an overlay green, and then it went, so it's always clockwise motion. And I think I ended up with this sketch. Then I took this one. Okay, this is, so you better understand the evolution. And this was a sketch that I picked to start developing it. And here you can't see these planes. Then in the end, they really form this S line, which was not defined yet. And I did a big change here. And this is one of the most important elements. So it's all very, it's not conscious decisions. I just paint and interesting shapes start to emerge.
Do you have references when you're doing these sketches, or are these all from your?
Sometimes, yes, but with this one, I don't think so.
Cool.
And but using references, I think is a must. I think it's much better to use reference. I don't use reference. I think it's more because I'm lazy, but I should use references a lot.
Cool. I mean, if
And
it helps not disrupt your flow at the start, and then
yes,
you
yes,
add them later on.
I'm not trying to copy the reference, but it has some important elements that sometimes helps to develop the image. And I remember I struggled with this part. It was a bit broken, and the
Oh,
colors, and there was a back and forth here, and in the end, I simplified this area a lot, because the motion really was coming from here, going inside, then going up to the left, and then here. So what I think works well with this painting is the perspective that is given by these flowing lines. um, you can feel the depth, and these riders here take you into this painting, and it ends here, and then there's this softness of the clouds. But overall, I think this is why people enjoy this painting.
If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much. But if you're still looking for more ways you can learn, just head on down to our website at brushpoint.io, where you can watch behind the scenes of this video, watch our live interviews and artist interviews a week earlier, art processes, tutorials, art talks, and lives every single Friday, and even a way to join our Discord community. Just check out that website. Well, that's it. If you want to share this knowledge, well, share with your friends. Like the video, and of course, subscribe if you want more content like this. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.